You've tuned in to the Beyond Hope podcast, your access to success strategies and more to help you survive and thrive through your loved one's addiction challenges while you move onward and upward with your life. Now, here's your host, Shar Jones.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. This is Shar Jones, and I'm the host of Beyond Hope, and I'm also the mother of an addict. So I understand what it means to love someone who struggles with addiction. It has been a very long journey for me, but I have gotten to a place of hope, beyond hope, which is kind of the ironic twist to the name, that I think really hope is where the healing begins. And on the other side of hope is life and joy and love and all these things that are no longer contingent upon the recovery of our addicts. So what I'm hoping to do with this podcast is bring to you so many people that I respect and admire, experts within the industry of addiction and recovery who have so much valuable information to share with me, with you, with all of us. And in addition, we'll be bringing you some stories of hope and hopefully some laughs, maybe some tears along the way, but it's going to be all good. So thank you so much for joining me today, and I look forward to this journey with you. Brenda, hi, welcome. I am just truly honored and touched that you are joining me today to talk about such an important topic, forgiveness. And I just want to welcome you, and I just want to turn it over to you to just please introduce yourself, share yourself with our listeners, and talk a little bit about what you do.
Thank you, Shar. I appreciate being here with you on a beautiful topic, which changed my life. So my background is I have lived a life like, some of us have, with the, abuse and neglect and also addiction. And so addiction has been a huge part of my life. I was addicted to alcohol. I'm 14 years sober, and that was quite a road. And when I was going through my addiction, I was also a single mom, raising two girls. And one of my daughters, had saw what the addiction had done. And so she chose the opposite. She chose to not touch anything, not do anything. My other daughter, on the other hand, chose to experiment with it all. And she always fought life. She was always the one that didn't want to conform. She was always the one that was pushing against. And she just has this thing about learning about life the hardest way possible. So we started, with her in her younger years. She ran away from home. She drained her savings account with drugs, and we couldn't find her. I didn't know if she was dead or alive, and finally found her, and at 17 got her into a treatment center in Utah for girls only. And, there was a lot wrapped up in that too. And then she came back and still had a hard time conforming, and not even conforming. I don't want to use that word. She had a hard time embracing sobriety, embracing this life, and she was still pushing against. And so it just involved, getting pregnant and married, and then she switched to alcohol and just drinking heavily and moved from state to state. And it was just never knowing. She's, had the gun to her head by drug dealers. It's just been a crazy ride. And through that, I started to get sober. And then realizing through this process, which I'm so grateful for the 12-step programs. I'm so grateful for them, because in her treatment, she'd just say, "Mom, that works for you. It doesn't work for me." And I watched her life. I watched the choices that she made, and it just was breaking my heart. I kept trying to fix it.
Because that's what we do.
That's what we do. And of course, I had guilt in there. I had guilt and shame because I thought I caused it.
Yep.
And so, yeah. And it was like, so it was a beautiful thing to have my sponsor tell me, as I was trying to control my daughters, right? I was making her life mine. I was trying to fix it. I just wanted a different life for her. And she looked at me and she said, you know, Brenda, she said, she has a God and you're not it.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
That's so profound, isn't it?
It was so totally, I looked at her like,
I got chills. Like, that is so profound.
And it just, I just kind of went, oh my gosh, I'm not responsible? And she said, no. Depending upon what you believe in, you know, she chose a life, just like I chose a life. And that I had to learn my way. And so what I can do is extend my love to her, say I'm here. You know, I went to Al-Anon for a little bit and you know, learned about that, which was a saving grace too. But just some other things and learning about codependence. That's when I started my codependent journey.
Yeah, I just am fresh in my codependent journey this year at learning about it. So, yeah.
Well, it is, and it's a fabulous journey. It's a little raw, but it's a fabulous journey. And so as I started on that, I could detach a little bit more. And of course, it's a dance, right? I take 2 steps forward and 2 steps back, and I would, you know, try to help her. And finally, it was like, but the more that I gave her the space and just allowed myself to be a foundation, just a foundation of love, saying, honey, I love you. I don't like your actions. I know what this does to you because I did it myself. So I'm here for you. Okay, I'm here for you. And then it was learning to set boundaries, and it was learning to say no, because she would contact me whenever, you know, she needed money or, you know, anything like that. And it was like, and at first I was paying her bills before mine. You know, I was that codependent. I was like, I was working 3 jobs and supporting her when she lived in another state because she had grandchildren. But that was just an excuse. It was still my codependence. It was still my shame and guilt. And so as I started in on the codependent work and realizing, you know, where my story lied and how I wasn't responsible for her, I could love her, but that the best gift that I could give her is give her space and let her know I'm there and really sit in my heart and know, how do I want to help her? Not feel like I have to help her, but where do I feel good? Because I was resentful. I would get angry and resentful. It's like, why can't you get this together? Knowing as an addict, when you're not ready, you're not ready. And so she is today, you know, 38 years old. And I just had a conversation with her yesterday, and hasn't drank for a year, quit smoking like 3 months ago. And so she is slowly getting her life in order. She's making some different decisions. And she told me yesterday, she said, Mom, I thank you for being there for me. I really appreciate knowing how much you love me. And I know, even though I'd like you to take care of me, that I need to do this for myself and my kids.
What a great gift.
Oh my gosh. I was like, oh, geez.
Like, who are you?
It was, but it's been a road.
Beautiful.
And so, yeah, for me, I pray and I hold space and I ask the universe for guidance and, you know, and I just continue to just be there how I want to be there. And so that's been the story, but I really needed to address the shame and the guilt for myself, because really, this is all about us. Forgiveness isn't about the other person. Forgiveness is all about us. And that's powerful. When I understood that, because we have to start outside of ourselves, right? We can't jump in because we are our worst critic, right? The reason why I drank and the reason why, you know, I wanted to escape and go numb was because of the pain. Because of the pain early on. Regardless of whether I chose it or not, right? The pain was there. So I decided to check out because I'm so sensitive. And a lot of people are. We all are sensitive. So we learn to check out. But the thing is that then it's our learning, our lessons to learn, how do I check back in? and that's the process. And when we have loving people that are there to guide us and show us there's tools here, but not force it down our throat, then we have a better time of being able to check back in. Because, there's one thing I was really stubborn. Don't tell me what to do, and especially if you tell me to get sober, I'm going to do the opposite of, and just had this ego that was huge, this pride and this ego, but really what it was protection. Didn't know any different. And so the forgiveness work has really helped open up my heart. And that's what I really love to do, is to be able to take someone on a journey and being able to say, okay, let's start outside of ourselves. What's the story? What is your story? So what's going on in your life, whether it's a spouse or a coworker or yourself or addiction, what is it? And so I listen intently to the story, because in that story is synchronicities, it's patterns, it's all sorts of little goodies that some people don't know about.
Like breadcrumbs.
Like breadcrumbs, exactly. So, for me, when I met with a forgiveness coach for the first time, she was hearing my story. And, she said, tell me about your life, marriages. And, I've been married several times, and jobs, and, just kind of tell me what it's about. And so I was telling her, and I said, I was married the first time 5 years, the second time 5.5 years, the third time 10 years. First job was 10 years, second job 20 years. And she looks at me and said, what happened to you when you were 5 years old? You have a pattern of 5. And I was amazed, because I said, my dad left. And that was such a painful experience for me, because at 5 years old, right, we think we're the world and we think we caused it. And then my mom, of course, was separated and had to go to work. So I was left alone. And so I felt abandoned and rejected. And so from there on went some other types of abuse and some other things. And so, it was like, oh my gosh. And from that belief came a lot of stories from that. So I created a belief that I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable, there's something wrong with me, and that every life I'm going to be with is going to choose another woman over me, because he left to go to another family that had a daughter just like me, same age, looked like me. And when we got to visit one time, and I looked at her and said, what, how come he loves you and not me? And so I didn't consciously know I had those beliefs, right? But that set me up. And so that showed up in every relationship I had. Every relationship. They chose, they went back to a girlfriend, or they chose another woman. It was amazing at how that showed up. I didn't know until I started doing the forgiveness work. And when she heard my story and we started talking, that's when the ahas started to come. The aha moments. And that's where I went, oh my gosh. And that actually started my healing, putting the awareness on it. And so that's what I love to do with people. And then I've had clients who have, said, every 18 months I change jobs or relationships. I just can't seem to get it together. And in telling the story, this one client, her brother was born at 18 when she was 18 months old. And her parents pulled away from her. Yeah. And she's like, oh my gosh, because he got all the attention. And so it's patterns like that show up that we don't realize. And that's what I love about the forgiveness work, is finding those. And then, what we're also able to do is to be able to feel the feelings. Because as women, we don't allow ourselves to. We've got to be tough. We've got to be strong. We've got, we are the homemakers. We are the providers a lot of the time, right? As a single mom, and trying to do the best we can for everybody else, but we put ourselves on the back burner. We're not taught to feel our feelings. We're not taught to express our feelings. We're not taught any of that. So we get to learn, and helping women go through that, being able to get angry. That takes a while. It took me a while. I was just talking with somebody the other day. After I got sober, it took me several years to even cry. It took me several years to get angry, because for the first time was allowing myself to feel these, and they were almost overwhelming, and I couldn't do it. until I could gently ease myself into it. And that's what the forgiveness work does. And there's little exercises that we do. Like my favorite is beating the bed with a bat or tennis racket. I encourage my daughter to do that. And she loves it. And she actually has her kids do it. It's fabulous because it gets the energy moving out of our body. Because that's another thing in the forgiveness work. It's just stuck energy.
And that is so unhealthy for us, right?
It is so unhealthy because it's proven now, right? They're proving it, that it shows up as disease. And that's what the forgiveness work was based on. The radical forgiveness work that I started with, his whole work started with cancer patients. And so because they had the hardest time to forgive. But I really encourage that, especially for teenagers, get that anger out because they're angry. We're angry. And we're holding it. And the more we stuff it, it's like a beach ball. Have you ever tried to hold a beach ball underwater? So whatever we resist persists. So it's going to show up one way or another. And then being able to separate that fact from interpretation is really important because, like my dad left at 5 when I was 5. But that's all. That's the fact. Nothing else. I don't know why what happened between them, but he left. But the interpretations I made up about it is my suffering. That's my shame and guilt. That's where all that comes from, is those beliefs that I made up about it. I'm not good enough. I'm not lovable. So that's held me back all of my life. And that's also helped me feel shame. When we don't feel good enough, that's shame. Because that's no longer what I've done. Because guilt is about what we've done. Like, I can feel guilty for driving drunk. But shame is who I am because I was drunk.
Thank you for clarifying that. Between guilt and shame, I think that is such an important point to make. Because they start to blur together, right? So guilt is healthy.
Oh, yeah. And there's appropriate guilt and inappropriate guilt. And that's another thing we go through in the forgiveness work is me learning the difference of that. I was holding so much inappropriate guilt. For instance, it's like if I'm driving drunk, I should feel guilty if I hit something. But if I'm normal, not doing anything wrong, and I happen to hit something because a tire blew, I can feel sad or hurt because I damaged something. But I shouldn't feel guilty for it because I wasn't doing anything wrong.
That really resonates with me. Feeling guilty for other people's behaviors. That's part of my story. So how do you start to differentiate that inappropriate guilt from the shame and from the healthy guilt? Is that where you come in?
Yeah. Well, that's where it is where you shine the light on it. So it's being aware of it, for one, is like me learning, there's appropriate guilt and inappropriate guilt. Oh my God.
Who knew?
I know. And that was like this gigantic aha, the big light bulb that goes on because it was amazing. And so just learning that really there's only a couple appropriate guilts. There's like 5 or 6 inappropriate. Like that, taking on, like parents, we do it all the time. We feel guilty for our kids' behavior. And, unless we were a super bad parent, we have no right. If we were a super bad parent, then, okay, we might have some guilt there. But for most of us, no. And when I understood that with my daughter, I went, I could feel it in my body just kind of start to like, okay. Then what am I guilty for? Okay, I am guilty for, like I said, driving drunk. I drove with the kids in the car, and I got in a couple accidents just in my own car. I was grateful I didn't hurt anybody else. But when it came to my daughter's addiction, that's not mine.
That's so important. I feel tempted to just let that sit for a second because being a part of so many moms groups who are struggling with families' addiction, I feel like they're so stuck. And I was stuck for a very long time, but That's why I so badly wanted to talk to you, because even considering forgiveness for oneself and for your children, when there's this sense of responsibility, I think that keeps us so sick. And then it impacts their healing as well as ours, right? Hi there. Thank you so much for listening. I'm going to take a quick moment to share with you a message from one of my sponsors, and we will be right back. I recently read an article that said 81% of Americans would like to become a published author. Chances are you're one of them. I know I am. So what's stopping us? Well, for me, it's a lot of hard work. It's time-consuming. It's painful and expensive, right? Not anymore. For my next book project, I'm teaming up with Hassle-Free Books, and they are making it so easy for me to become an author. They're removing all of the fuss and struggle and making it smooth and simple. And it's far more affordable than you could ever imagine. Go to hasslefreebooks.com and use the promo code SHAR to receive a 10% discount off of any book project. Get started right away, and you can become a published author in as little as 45 days. And don't forget to send me a copy of your signed book, please. What are you waiting for? Get your story out there. Visit hasslefreebooks.com, promo code SHAR today. Can you talk a little bit more about that, about forgiveness of oneself?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. And understanding the shame and the guilt and separating that is huge for our own forgiveness, right? Because forgiveness is acceptance. So forgiveness is where we start when we can break down our story, and when we can start to illuminate a different light on, oh, maybe I didn't have anything to do with that behavior. Maybe I'm not responsible for what happened to me, but I am responsible for how I respond to it going forward. That right there is a huge part. And then kind of breaking those pieces into what is showing up in your life. Because some people don't know. Like they kind of know. Like I knew I had a pattern of picking the wrong guy. I knew I had a pattern of turning to other things, food, alcohol, relationships for, to escape. So I knew that, but I didn't know what to do with it. And so for one, identifying what is showing up in your life, who is showing up in your life. And there's a little exercise that I like to do with people is like you take two people and that you find that irritate you. Two people that you find irritate you for whatever reason, whether it's a movie star or a dead person or a live person, doesn't matter. And make a column, 2 columns on a piece of paper and write their names. And then write down 10 things that irritate you about them. And what you'll find is when you look at those items, because it's a really good for clarification, is where do those show up in my life? How is that shown? Now it's a mirror, but it's not an exact mirror. It's like a funhouse mirror. Those ones where you stand in front and you look tall or short? It's like that because it's like, oh, so I have betrayal in my life because I was betraying myself. I wasn't being true to me. I was pushing myself. I was being a doormat. I was trying to take care of everybody else's problems and trying to fix them, but I was ignoring me. So the betrayal that was showing up in my life was about me. The rejection showing up in my life was me rejecting me. And really powerful. That is powerful. And so when we do that, when we become aware, and we look at our story and we see, oh, these people were showing me something. What is that? That, along with kind of highlighting the shadow part of us, the own selves, the different selves, we go through that in the self-forgiveness work, the different types of selves. And it's like, oh, let me bring back that lost self. Let me bring back that girl that had fun, was creative, and looked at life with joy. Because as a woman, I become more serious and I don't play. That was my story. everything was serious. I had to get it done. And it was just, I didn't have any fun. So highlighting those really starts to bring back the awareness and the love. And there's little exercises to do, like, you've heard of, like the mirror work. My good friend Lisa Lamont is the mirror love little guru. And she, talks about, look at yourself in the mirror. And if you can't say I love you, because I couldn't start that way. But what I could do was say, oh, you have nice hair. You've got nice ears. I just started somewhere. Because really, when we're dealing with addiction in our family members or ourselves or anybody else, it's a lack of self-love. It's a lack of self-love. It's a lack of awareness of self because of something that happened. We learned along the way, but it's also a gift. And so that's what I like to help people look at, is like, okay, yes, let's honor what happened to you because you are courageous and brave for going through and being alive today. You are. And our daughters are. And our families are. And so it's tapping into that and finding, where's the gift? Where's the gift in that? But also along the way, we learn through worksheets and through audios, through my forgiveness process, of how to break that down so it doesn't happen all at once. Because if you've ever been told to let go, you know how that feels. Let go of what? It's like, no, it hurts too much to let go, right? And so it's learning how to look at our story differently and looking at the people, the players in my life differently. And then finding the gift, because the gift is within us. So what I like to do is I like to help bring people back home to them.
That's beautiful.
It's a beautiful place to be.
And loving oneself. That statement alone, I just feels like we have so much healing to do. And when we are always, I find that those that really struggle with addiction, substance abuse of any kind, are so expressive of their love. They're generally such loving and compassionate people that they're just giving away. And I don't think it doesn't land with themselves. Do you agree with that?
I do agree with that. Oh, I do. Very loving and compassionate. But we're not taught. Very few people, I'm going to say that, very few people are taught to turn that inward. Mm-hmm. We're always taught, especially as little girls, you need to help over here. You need to do this over there. And boys are taught, don't cry, be a man. I mean that, and I'm so grateful for today that the parents today are trying to do it differently, are doing it differently. There's more awareness today than we had, but there's still a lot to go.
Yeah.
Able to give our children the way to express, be able to talk openly, to be able to not feel shamed, because a lot of us were shamed as children unintentionally. Our parents did the best they could. They actually did. They really did. And they were wounded. So what we can do is we can understand that we need to do some healing around it, because you can't just go, oh, they did the best they can, so let me try to forgive. Because there still is that need to condemn there. There still is that you hurt me, so we get to heal that. Because each one of us, at the core, 99.9% of the time, are loving, compassionate, kind people. And those that turn to addiction, whether it's the codependent addiction or whether it's the alcohol addiction or drug addiction, is a beautiful, sensitive soul. Inside there is someone who doesn't know. They don't know how to protect themselves. They don't know how to deal with this big, huge emotion of life. And when we recognize that, then we can do the boundaries and we can set up a conversation and we can offer tools for both of us, to walk side by side versus pulling each other along or pushing each other. Because that's what it feels like. That's what it felt like with my daughter. I was pulling or pushing and she was resisting the whole time.
Me too.
And when I could step back and I could just feel it with love And I could say, here, honey, do you want me to offer some guidance or help? I'm right here. And wait, and that is the hardest part.
I was remembering a brief conversation that I had with my daughter recently where my gift to her was giving her life back. And it was not very much, we didn't share very many words, but it was just like this, it was a gift. I'm like, I'm giving you your life back, and you get to make those decisions, and you're in control of the outcome too. So she gets to then, when she succeeds or when she's got things to celebrate, she gets to own those as well, right? It's not us. We don't get to take ownership of any of that. And I just feel like that's such a healthy place to be for us and for them.
Oh yeah. Beautiful work.
Yeah, really, really is beautiful. I just feel like so incredibly grateful that you are out there in the world doing your work. And I honor you with that. I really do. And this topic, I feel like when you were first talking about when you are working with people and trying to find out their story and whatnot, I was thinking, as the mom with a child who struggles with drug addiction or alcoholism, any kind of substance abuse, I feel like that might stop them in their tracks, because we are to inquire about our story, and it's almost like it would take them aback. Like, what do you mean? Because we're so focused on our family member and their story. To shift that perspective onto ourselves, I can imagine would be, I don't know. What do you think? Like, you're the one doing the work. I mean, does it have that impact on some of them where they're like, wait a minute. You want to know my story? Like, I'm here to fix my child, because they're still in their head. Like,
well, yeah. And that can take a little time to be able to pull back. It did for me. And I really had to keep repeating that she's got a God and I'm not it. And you know, and I picked my journey, and look what I went through. She picked her journey, and this is what she's going through. And she's got lessons, and our lessons may be somewhat alike, but they are going to possibly show up differently. You know, they're going to manifest differently. And so the best gift that I can give, and this is what I do, is holding space and being able to encourage people to go, you know what? The best gift you can give is to do what you did for your daughter, right? Is to kind of pull back and be there and offer, here I have tools, here I can help, but you have to want it too. I cannot want it more than you. And that was hard. And it took a little time, but the more that we clean it out, the more that we really change our perception around our stories and around what we've done, defining the difference between the shame and guilt, and then really learning about our own shadows and how I can embrace that, that's when we come home to ourselves. That can take some time, but it doesn't have to take a long time. It just takes willingness to look at something a little differently.
Yeah. And once there's that small little shift in perspective, as you mentioned, the aha moments start coming in, and everything changes. The way that you perceive everything shifts. And that's how I've shifted from darkness to joy. That's how I started to let the light in and started choosing positivity and joy every day. I always say this, like, in the darkest times, I started choosing positivity over and over and over and over and over again, as many times as it took in a day. But once you start making those little pivots, I just feel like, yeah, everything changes, and you can really start to heal. And then it's almost like a fast track, you know, those light bulbs start going off. And then for me, like, learning how to heal myself, the largest lesson for me there was then I could show up for my daughter in the way that she needed me to show up. I could be the parent that she needs me to be, you know, and it's a work in progress. But the forgiveness piece, I mean, I'm just exploring that this year, and it's incredibly deep, powerful work.
And keeping in mind, it's a process.
Yeah.
I was told, it was so funny. I was told, it's like, okay, am I going to get there? When am I going to get there?
Because you just want to fix it. It's like, what?
Because we all want it right now. Give me the pill. Give me something. Come on. And I remember being told, Brenda, it's a lifelong process. This is a lifelong process. And I went, oh. That's like till death? Oh. Okay. But what that did was really gave me permission, right? It gave me permission to go, oh, I don't have to get it. We don't arrive. We don't graduate. That, oh, it does get easier. It does get easier. And then I start to recognize behaviors quicker and faster, and I have more tools. And so that's what helps, knowing it's a process. And it can be a real beautiful process. I'm going to tell you, it sucks while you're going through it sometimes.
Painful.
It is painful, but it's not for long. And each time that we go through a painful part, that painful part gets a little less and a little less and a little less. And the feeling good part gets a little more and a little more. It's beautiful. And just knowing that helped me go through those painful parts, right? Because I knew, I got through the last one. I can get through this one. And I'm going to be better when I do that. And the more that I can do that for me, the more my family is really going to be able to celebrate too. Because whatever I change in me radiates out. It does. And it changes everyone around me.
That ripple effect is really, really powerful.
Yeah, because you talked about positivity. It's all in the energy field. It can just radiate out. We do make a difference. If we can just help one person, which is ourselves, we've helped the planet.
That's so true. It's so true. It changes our life, but then just like you mentioned, everyone that we come in contact with from there on after, we share that light and that energy. And I don't want to backtrack too much, but I was thinking about those family members that, addiction is not pretty. Alcoholism is not pretty. And the behaviors that show up can be very, very painful on relationships. And some family members may turn their back on that person because they feel so betrayed. And this may be a conversation for another day, but I'm thinking for those folks that have taken that resentment and that betrayal so inward, like if that person is listening, like what little golden nugget would you like to give them?
So for the person that feels betrayed, right, from the addict, and that's where we really have to. So for instance, my ex-husband, I was married to him at the time that I got sober, and he was very resentful and angry. And all I could do was he wouldn't even let me make amends to him. It took years. What I had to do is I had to just do living amends. I had to just keep showing up, the addict, right? If you're staying in relation, I was just encouraged to keep showing up, doing what I needed to do to help myself, because that's all I could do. And so for him, what he chose to do was to talk about it with other people, not with me, with a counselor. And he got to work through that and understanding, because if they're not willing to let go of their resentment, there's not much that can happen. But if they want to let go of the resentment, they have to look deep inside themselves and go, what is it within me? Why am I so resentful and angry at this other person? What's showing up in my life? Why am I angry? Why am I resentful? Because all mirrors for each other. They may not have an addiction, but they might.
Yeah.
They might have an addiction to working too much. They might have an addiction to stuffing their emotions down and exercising too much. They might, have that the addiction person might remind them of somebody in their past that they've shut out. So really having the person who's holding the resentment and the betrayal and the anger, not that it's not their fault at all, but they can, if they're willing to, take a look at what's coming up for them. Who does it remind them of in their life? And where possibly is the betrayal showing up for them? Are they betraying themselves? Do they have an addiction? Because really, honestly, we all have one.
Mm-hmm.
Every
Caffeine, sugar, I don't know, gambling,
codependent, sex. Oh yeah. And there's even love addiction, right? Relationship addiction. And so really those people that are ready can take a look at that. And then there's ways that they can work through that themselves, is showing up on their shadow side, taking a look at that, writing down those 10 things about the person that they don't like, and then looking at themselves. So there's some simple things. And then there's also, other groups, there's support groups for those people in relationship. Al-Anon is great, and different support groups out there that have been proven to help, because then you're not alone. You have a free, a really safe space to express it. And then to discover, though, this is the key, is discover where is it showing up in my own life. And once my ex could do that, then he saw his addiction. And then he wrote me a forgiveness letter. And he accepted my amendment. And that's powerful.
It's beautiful.
So, but really doing that for ourselves on both sides of the coin.
Yeah, and we're all on our own journey. So you can't rush him through that process.
Yeah.
You couldn't do that. And he had to do the work himself and discover it in his own time.
Right, and I had to prove it. I had to prove myself, right? To me and everybody around me. I just had to keep showing up. And I couldn't let his anger or resentment, which was tough, let that deter me.
That's huge.
And that's where the support groups come in, right? That's where having someone, don't do it alone. Don't do it alone. That's where having support groups and somebody to really call and say, help, I'm feeling weak today. I'm feeling like he's getting under my skin, or that kind of thing, or that, and then the other person who's on the other side, they need someone to talk to.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And being able to heal, someone who's going to listen to them, not just complain, but to help them see where is that showing up in their life, themselves.
Thank you so much for sharing all of this with me. I just feel so grateful to you. Again, just for the work that you're doing, but also just for taking time for me and for my listeners today. And I've enjoyed our conversations, and I just hope they continue. And for those that are listening to this and hearing about forgiveness and self-love and these things maybe that they haven't explored before, I would love to have you share with them how they can find you so that they can continue that journey.
Oh, thank you. Yes. They can reach me on Facebook. They can reach me. It's Brenda Reiss, REISS coach. Okay. And I also have a private Facebook, which is Brenda Reiss, REISS, and I post a lot on that too. And then my website is Brenda Reiss, REISS coaching.com. So it's BrendaReissCoaching.com. And on there, I have a little bit about the forgiveness process. I have about me. I'm going to update. I'll have upcoming events on there because I've got a workshop in November.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
I'll make sure to drop all that information below on the link. And so you do coaching. Do you do one-on-one coaching then?
I do. I do work with people one-on-one. And then I love to do the workshops, because in the group environment, there's a lot of healing that goes on, and a lot of feeling like you're not alone.
Thank you so much. And I just wish you so much love, you and your journey, and for your daughter and your entire family. I just wish you so much love. And again, thank you for being here, and maybe you'll come back.
Yes. Thank you, Shar. You're doing beautiful work. Thank you for sharing this.
Thank you again. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Okay, bye. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. and for helping me to connect with other moms of addicts or loved ones who are struggling with addiction in their lives. If you have questions for me, comments, suggestions on future show content, or perhaps there's a specific topic that you would like to hear from an expert in the field, I would love to hear from you. I am also interested in sharing your voice. So if you have messages of hope or personal stories that you think would resonate with our listeners, please send me an email. You can type me out a message, or you can include an attachment to an audio clip with your voice. You can send that to shar@beyondhoperadio.com. And with that, thank you again, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to Beyond Hope. For show notes and more, head on over to beyondhoperadio.com.
A huge thank you to recoveryinnovators.com and James Healy. Thank you so much for putting up with me and for helping me to produce and launch the show. I couldn't have done it without you. You're so awesome. And to anybody else who has been considering working with James, highly recommend him. Please go over to his website and check it out, recoveryinnovators.com.